Hi guys, I'm Kasia. Welcome to the channel and welcome as always to our coffee times to discuss movies and horror. And today I'm here with the first movie that I watched at the Fantasy Film Fest called The Lockdown Tower.
It's coffee time!
So it's been a little bit since I was at the Fantasy Film Fest, and I am happy to report that I watched 9 out of the 10 movies, so I did a really good job and I enjoyed some more than others. I have decided that for separate reviews I'm only going to talk about the specifically like horror ones, and the other ones I will just mention them on my monthly wrap-up. So today we're going to be discussing the French movie The Lockdown Tower. I decided that in order to review them, I'm just going to review them in the order that I watched them, because if I pick my favorites first, then we're all going to be stuck with movies I didn't enjoy so much. So let's talk first about this French movie. This is a French movie that came out in September 2022, and it could be sort of an interpretation of what could happen if there is a huge lockdown, which we know about those sadly, and the lockdown would be like for a long period of time. That is kind of like how it feels like, but of course this one has a twist. It has some horror elements to it, but we're going to talk about it today completely spoiler free. I would say this movie has traces or elements from The Fog, but also a little bit of Delicatessen, so it is kind of like a weird mix. In the middle of a city we have the inhabitants of a building, an apartment building, and then when they wake up one day they realize that there is this opaque kind of fog surrounding the building. It is so dark they are unable to see what is outside. It is a strange dark matter that seems to devour everything that is on its way. Trapped, the residents try to organize themselves, but to ensure their survival, they gradually succumb to their most primitive instincts until they sink into horror. So one of the most interesting things that the movie has is obviously the premise of having strangers locked in an apartment building. It is a big apartment building, and of course sometimes you know your next door neighbor, but you don't really know everybody that is living there. Plus there might be people in the building that just came to visit or to spend the night, and now they're also trapped in there. So you're going to see a lot of survival. That's mostly what the characters want to do. They want to survive. They want to know what's going on outside, but they cannot go outside due to this fog. So they're stuck inside trying to figure out what's going on. On top of that, the technology doesn't seem to work anymore since the fog appeared. So they are completely cut off from civilization. If there's still any civilization out there, we don't know. The only problem with the characters is that a lot of them were characters that are very typical that you can expect. Let's say they're very cliche and very tropey when it comes to the characters, and even though I enjoyed some more than others, I still feel like it felt a little bit more like they were just trying to fit these characters all into separate boxes. So we have currently 180 people inside of this building, and something that happened towards kind of the beginning, and I feel like I wasn't a fan of it, but if I put it into perspective and I try to imagine this in a like real situation, it could potentially happen, sadly. But that is that the moment that things started to get hairy, the moment things started to get to the point where people were struggling to survive, we see that people are dividing into groups, and it is specifically the white people, the black people, the Arab people. So that kind of rubbed me the wrong way a little bit. It's almost like humanity cannot just come together and try to figure out a way of surviving. But at the same time, if you know humanity would be put in that position, what we would do, it's really hard to tell. This is kind of like an end of the world almost scenario, similar to movies like The Divide, High Rise, The Mist, or Await Further Instructions. Even though we don't really see like big images of end of the world, it almost feels like it, because we have these people trapped. They cannot go out. There is no way to communicate with anybody, so they're kind of left to die in a way, because obviously they cannot go out, which means they cannot get groceries, they cannot get anything that they might need. One thing that I really did like about the characters and kind of like the consistency of it all is that as the days, weeks, months pass, you can see that not only the building is deteriorating, also the inhabitants of this building, they are looking more grimy, dirty. They almost start to lose their human-like qualities. The thing with the Lockdown Tower is that there is basically no positive outcome theme that comes from any scene. All scenes seem to be like horrifying and for shock value, and they all seem to be, you know, kind of giving this image of something that is absolutely hopeless. So you as the viewer are just going into a down spiral that you know it's probably not going to lead anywhere nice. There's no like even scent of hope in the whole film, which is not a bad thing, you know. Actually, if something like this would happen, I don't know if there would be much hope left. But the thing is, the tone of the movie never really changed. It was always this kind of like sad, grimy kind of portrayal, and it didn't change even though they tried with some like shock value scenes. But still, the tone of the film was so kind of consistent that you didn't have ups and downs, you didn't have extremely twists and turns, so it didn't keep the movie exciting. I feel like that was one of the biggest criticisms that I had, is that I was not really excited or invested about it because everything was one tone. You kind of knew where things were going, and it was just also a movie that fails to bring any kind of explanation to a lot of things. A lot of things are left unexplained, and that can be a little bit frustrating. For me as a viewer, I don't need explanations of everything. I'd rather a movie also not over-explain things, like Knock at the Cabin. So I kind of wish though that they would have done things a little bit differently, and they would have given us a little bit more of twists and turns instead of just adding certain scenes just purely to shock the audience for no other reason than just to be there to shock. My cat Michael Morbius has just joined the chat. So now let's talk about the horror of the film. So I feel like in this type of movies, end of the world, survival scenarios, I always say that the thing you should fear the most is humanity, is other humans, because experience has taught us like with shows with The Walking Dead, shows like The Last of Us, that mostly humans are, in the end, our own worst enemy. There are some brutal scenes in the film, and things are gonna make the audience feel really uncomfortable. There is a little bit of animal abuse, violence stuff, so just putting it out there in case that's a trigger warning for you. But not everything in the film was bad. Actually, there were many scenes that were a little bit more to portray the horror that I really enjoyed. There's a couple of things that happened that I was not expecting that were nice to see. So this is not like a typical horror movie where, you know, in the movie, for example, The Fog, you expect things to come out of the fog, you expect humanity to fight against some sort of like evil or supernatural entity. In this case, it's more about what would happen if humanity would be locked in a building without any more access to food or water for an undetermined period of time, and how would they survive. That is basically where the horror comes from. So if you're expecting something more exciting about The Fog, I'm here to tell you it's not gonna happen. At the end of the day, I decided to give this movie a 2.5 out of 5, which for me it means it is okay to give it a watch, but don't expect too much of it. It's just standard. I feel like this movie had amazing ideas, and there were many things that I did enjoy about the film, but there is, I feel like, a problem when it comes to presenting and developing those ideas. The thing is, I was excited about the idea. When the movie started, I was really excited to see how things were gonna go and how things decline as time passes by. But I feel like it left me really unsatisfied. It didn't fulfill me as a, you know, as a viewer. There were things missing for me. And when the ending came, I just felt, yeah, like unsatisfied. I just don't want to spoil anything when it comes to the ending, but it was just not exactly as amazing as I expected it to be. But like I said, for a one-time watch, I do feel like it is worth your time. Alright guys, so this was a spoiler-free review of The Lockdown Tower, a French horror movie that came out in 2022. Let me know down below if you ever heard of it, if you're interested in watching it, or if you watched it. Let's talk about it in the comments down below, and let me know which is your favorite French horror movie. Let's talk about it. Thank you guys as always so much for watching, and I hope to see you all in the next coffee time. Bye!